Let's start with what I think is a really sad story. Legendary wide receiver Randy Moss is very ill. Randy Moss is recovering from major cancer surgery, a 6-hour procedure, cancerous tumor around his liver, not inside. But after the surgery, radiation, chemo, it's going to take him months. He says he will win this fight. Obviously, he's been sick for a while, and he announced just a couple of weeks ago that he was stepping away from ESPN TV. So everybody thinking about Randy Moss because this is a big fight he's got. Raiders, Mad Max, gone for the season. Period, exclamation point, end of just a horrific season of troubles for the Raiders. Maxx Crosby's having surgery on his ankle. He'll miss the rest of the season. They have no quarterback. They have no running back. They traded their wide receiver. They lost 3 of their top defensive linemen the first half of the campaign. Now they lost their ace, Maxx Crosby. He's gone. 10 years ago, Odell Beckham made an unbelievable catch for the New York Giants. You know, if you Google the video, Odell Beckham Jr. one-handed catch, most amazing thing. He's lived off that catch for a decade. He's hardly been a contributor. Couldn't stay healthy. When he's been on the roster, he doesn't catch a lot of balls. Miami just released him. So this is the 3rd straight team he's been on that they said, bye-bye. Odell Beckham has made a life out of that one-handed catch and just hadn't been the same player since. Beckham released in Miami. And a really sad note, he was one of the first great personalities who was a referee. Jim Tuny has passed away at age 95. This is one of the legendary head referees in the NFL, dating all the way back to the 1960s and 70s. This is before refs became personas, but he was one of the really great ones. He worked the Ice Bowl game in Green Bay, Dallas. He's worked Super Bowl after Super Bowl. He's in the Hall of Fame. Special gentleman. He just passed away at the age of 95 in Pebble Beach. So a lot of stuff off the field around the NFL. John?
Yeah, Randy Moss, you know, I remember when he first said he had a health issue, he was kind of coy about it, wasn't offering detail. I thought it was something with his eye. And now it's the liver. It's tough. I just remember Randy Moss, when he played athletically, he was just tremendous as a player, but he always had kind of a little bit of a bad reputation character-wise. But since he's been on the NFL studio shows that he does, I can't remember what network, he does a great job. I mean, he's a good dude. And I find myself rooting for him, you know, to be successful as a commentator. But yeah, I mean, gee whiz, you know, getting chemo, and that's a tough go.
Yeah, he says he's cancer-free, but 6 hours of surgery on your organs, that's pretty significant. You are right. You know, he came from the backwaters of West Virginia, from poverty, and he was kind of a bad character, and he was supposed to go to Notre Dame, and there was all kinds of stuff off the field in the streets when he was growing up and ran West Virginia, and Notre Dame pulled the scholarship. Anyhow, he wound up at Marshall. Was about the only place he could get into, and he played in Marshall, and he helped turn that program around when they brought it back from the plane crash, and they became a 1AA power because Randy Moss and Chad Pennington and Byron Leftwich were part of that resurrection. And then he went to the NFL, and there was an attitude with him, and there was a style, but God, he was a great receiver, and he moved around team to team, finished up with New England. I think Parcells had a great amount of investment in Randy Moss as a person, in addition to being a player. And then Belichick. So there's a hell of a lot of people are rooting for Randy Moss. And he changed as a person. He grew up, his son, Thad Moss, was a big tight end, I think at LSU, has been in and out of the National Football League. So he's facing the challenge. How about the Raiders and Maxx Crosby? What a horrific period, exclamation point, to a terrible season.
Well, they're on NFL Monday Night Football tonight, right?
Yes.
Aren't they? Yeah. Just a disaster. I mean, you know, you've talked about Antonio Brown might be on the hot seat here. I don't know.
Pierce.
Excuse me. Antonio Pierce. Yeah. Different guy.
Antonio Brown is already out of the NFL. Antonio Pierce might join them.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how that all shakes out. It's interesting you're talking about the referees. And what was the gentleman's name that passed?
Jim Tuny.
Jim Tuny.
Back in the day.
I remember that name. But there's all the NFL refs, the one dude I always remember, his name is Ed Hockley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember because he had the guns, you know, with his biceps and everything. And I remember there was a Charger Broncos game where something went terribly wrong with Ed Hockley on a call. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he botched something, and then he tried to talk his way out of it with a hot mic. But he was a very, very good referee. Jim Tuny was the first of the great ones, and that's way back in the day.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's good to show some respect for these guys that have turned the NFL into what it is now. Now, off the field, there was another story about one of the Niners that was refusing to play. What's going on with that?
His name is DeAndre Campbell, and in that Thursday night game against the Rams, they had injuries. Jerry Greenlaw was first game back. He kind of ran out of gas. He had the Achilles rupture last year in the playoffs, and he needed to come out. And DeAndre Campbell had been removed from the starting lineup, so Greenlaw would be the starter. DeAndre Campbell refused to go in the game. And there was the discussion with him and Kyle Shanahan in the midst of the game. John Lynch, the general manager, came down from the luxury suite and ordered him off the field into the dressing room. And then post-game, tone of conversation is, why the hell would this guy do this? And Kyle Shanahan said he'll never play for us again. They suspended him this morning, the rest of the season. He's forfeited all of his signing bonus money by virtue of insubordination, if you will. And worse, his teammates went public and just shredded him.
Wow.
The tight end, George Kittle, who was kind of the mouthpiece leader of that team, said, you owe this franchise, you owe these players in this room an apology. Own it, and then get the hell out of here.
So he was just angry that he was no longer the starter.
And he refused to go in the third quarter when Greenlaw, first game back, was gassed.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? I mean, there's a common bond amongst all those guys, in the locker room, and they got to back each other up. I mean, it's imagine how hard it is to get to the NFL, and then you get there and you refuse to play.
And it's on a 4-year contract, and they're voiding the other 3 years, which means the signing bonus goes away too.
Yeah. Well, he gets getting what he deserves.
Unbelievable. So those are all topics in the NFL. Feel free. Off the field, you got an opinion, you're invited.